Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. Sorry. I'm Ritwika Misra, and thank you for joining us for this open house. I oversee the Archives and Museums program at IFA, and today we have thought of organizing this open house to answer your queries and questions. And this is in response to the current call that is open under the AMP program in collaboration with Women of Vaastukala Archives. And from the archives behalf, we have Ishita Shah, who's an oral historian and project lead of Women of Vaastukala Archives and also the director and founder of Curating for Culture. So I know some of you have written to us, some of you have seen the call. The intention is we will give you the background and the intention of this call, and then we'll open the floor for any kind of question and answers. So Ishita, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ritwika. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I think I'll keep it very brief because I'm right now presuming that all of you have gone through the archive itself. So, what led to the archive is a need for rewriting and tracing architectural history in India from the perspective of women practitioners. And it was funded by Graham Foundation in those early stages. The focus of the project initially was to look at first generation women architects, and that's very difficult to trace because their works don't exist anywhere. Their stories are quite uh, I mean, I can't say oblivious, but yeah, they are completely under shadows. People who might have also known about their life and histories are not around, right? And because of that, plus it was during COVID, so the whole idea of wanting to trace the stories of first generation women architects got even more difficult during the pandemic. And we moved on to looking at second and third generation, and suddenly this whole idea of generation, which is also coming perhaps from a very different discourse, sort of blurred out that what is this need to identify any history or any set of practitioners as first generation or second generation. Here are available set of women practitioners. Let's speak to them. Let's trace their oral histories. I mean, let's trace their lives. And oral history was a very important, has been a very important method or a tool which we work with as far as archive building is concerned, so that you are also dealing with the lived experience. And when you emphasize on the need to understand and engage with lived experience, the process or the conversation or the narrative is not limited to just the professional boundaries. It actually is quite beautifully interwoven between personal, professional, um, and so many other aspects of life and sort of, and I think that's the beauty of what the oral history archive sort of puts out there, that here are these 21 women practitioners almost from across India. I mean, I don't think we have been very good at geographically mapping all the places. Also, 21 itself is not the real number. We've just started scratching the surface, and there are many more women practitioners whose stories need to be archived before they're forgotten. But at least with these 21, we made sure that we work with a certain kind of a diversity of narrative, all of them sitting for hours, telling us their life story, showing us their works, or the fact that their work has been, I mean, executed, the buildings are out there, but there's no other documentation of it. So either it's the building or it's these oral histories. And our approach to making the archive was obviously twofold. One, with the intention that yes, these narratives or these oral histories are accessible on an online platform for whoever wants to work or research with it, but also to be able to sort of, from the archiving point of view, process it in a way where all those of you who might have seen it, they are clipped into different sections. And what is that clip talking about is the title of that clip, which also helps in a sense of annotation or looking for material that you're looking for. There are also summaries of these conversations. We have not been able to do verbatim transcripts, but that's always been and will always be a part of the plan as the project grows. And the key aspect of accessibility was the search platform. So, if any of you have tried, when you search something in the search option, or you can use the filters on the left side, you are actually able to hopefully navigate something as expansive as oral histories or ethnographic data through the idea of keyword search or metadata search. So the project also, apart from being a project of tracing forgotten histories of women and representing women, it also became about telling stories which are woven with personal and professional. And it also became an archive, which is really about access and how do you make access possible, and what are the tools, what are the explorations, and in that sense making sense of this project for a larger audience, and not just limiting it to its access for those who already know of the architects or of architectural profession. Even in the way of writing, even in the way of breaking down keywords, there is that simplicity in making the content accessible to different archivists, I mean, different readers of the archive. Yeah, we finished this work in 2022. And that's when we called the digital platform open. And then later in 2023, we were invited by Sheila Ahmedabad, where we were able to sort of push our own boundaries and see what would it mean to sort of bring physical archives into conversation. Because while there aren't many, but there are physical archives related to these women practitioners. So we engaged with that set of work and exhibited the archive and the stories that emerged from it. And then there have been many other engagements with the archive. Either it's been invited to exhibitions or for publications, or we have made pitches for a conference, or I mean, abstract pitch for a conference, or yeah, written essays about it ourselves. So that's where we are so far with what the archive looks like, and hope to sort of take it further with all of you. I hope that was not too short or too long in terms of telling about the project.
No, thanks, Ishita. I think that gives, the foundational aspects of this endeavor that has been going on, and also uh, the larger expanse of the work that has been done, but also the intention of this particular collaboration. So the archives and museums at IFA intends to intervene in archival and museum spaces, but also and to enable people to and practitioners, researchers to work with existing collections. But also one of the line of inquiry which the program is trying to lean into is to understand how archives can be built and how archives can be extended and kind of built over time with other kind of contributions. Because as all of you would know, like an archival process is also about the sensibility, and that never actually stops growing. It's not only about collecting the interview, it's not only about populating the metadata, but also to be able to work across. So I have shared the link of the call again. I am aware, which probably most of you have gone through it. So while of course the impetus is to record and interview more of like women practitioners whose histories are lesser explored. I mean, I think that goes without saying, but also perhaps to look at the existing work and draw cross references, bring out newer narratives around it. Uh, in a way to also sustain this work with all of your kind of expertise that you already have. And also, what I think the call mentions is there will be in the winter of 2026 a forum. Right now, we are not in the position to share the details of the forum. So, whoever sends an application, whoever is writing the proposal, so maybe to keep that in mind that you have something to offer to be part of that forum, because that will be crucial. Not that you are going to stop your work by winter of 2026, but something tangible to be presented at the forum. And then you can also continue to extend that work to build it further for the next few months that remains in the project. So yeah, I mean that is all from right now of with what we have seen and we have figured from the responses we are getting in terms of the call. Feel free to either unmute yourself, ask us questions, or feel free to write in your questions in the chat, and I think we will take it up one by one. Yes, Rashmi, go ahead. You're on
Not
mute.
mute. Yeah.
Very, very sorry. Hello, good evening. Thank you for this initiative. I am an artist based in Pune, and I have been working on the stepwells of India, that is all over India. If you would know that in Ahmedabad, that you mentioned there is a beautiful stepwell called Rani Ki Vav, which was made by Rani Udaymati. So that documentation is also there, and plus I would like to do the documentation of Kalpana Ramesh. She is an architect who has taken up adoption of stepwells of Hyderabad. So her project is Bansilal Pet stepwell. She has managed to get the state board, the NGOs and locals and many people, and they have cleaned the place. They have now an exhibition space at the stepwell. The water is clean so that it is filtered. You can go there and you can drink that water. And there is a museum there. There is a cultural space where cultural programs happens. So it is like a converting of a beautiful heritage water conservation space into a living space in the modern setup. So I have been following her work, and I have been writing about her there in my book. I am publishing a book this year, which has been published by Niyogi Publishers in Delhi. And I have asked her also whether I would like to feature her work, because her work is very important, and she's not stopped on one step. She's gone further and she's adopting more and more steps. She's getting the whole community involved. And that is to help the water conservation, to help us understand the water bodies that were there, because every city now is like the water is depleting like anything, especially I can say from Maharashtra point of view. In fact, this weekend I'm traveling to Aurangabad and Parbani, where I will document how the local bodies have cleaned their respective stepwells, and they're going to have a Deepotsav on the Shivratri day. So I still haven't written the proposal, but I was just thinking on that lines. I took permission from Kalpana Ramesh. So do you think it is a good idea to write a proposal on this and send to you?
Um, okay, Ritvika, I think I want to check with you how we want to sort of respond to questions, if it's okay. Are you there?
Yeah, I am here. I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can go by encouraging the idea and also to kind of uh, spell it out in a way like whether this is within the scope of the call. However, having
Definitely.
said that, we are also we will not discourage you from sending in proposals. Whether
Mm,
it gets within the scope is contingent upon a lot of factors. So if you have
mm,
very specific questions related to the proposal, your idea, we will
mm.
try to answer as much as we can. Since it's also a public forum, if you have further more ideas with draft, that's a later stage that we can take it up as well. So yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and send it.
Right. Yeah.
But
I think
Ishita, if you want to
because we
respond to anything specific,
Yeah, yeah,
you
because I think we are interested, if I put it as simply for everyone and for Rashmi, we are interested in more stories and histories or documentation of women architects becoming a part of the archive or becoming an extension of the archive, whatever shape it takes. So there is definitely interest in all forms of works that emerge from women practitioners' interest, and whether it's conservation and water conservation or actually making structures which are to do with water. But I think the focus or the core for us will obviously be the whole idea that these are women based or women led or women generated practices, so that it remains within the vision and the purview of the archive itself, right?
Yeah, see, then I can also do it because she has been she is an architect by profession. So she
Mm,
is constructing this buildings and other places in Hyderabad using the natural materials available and keeping in, a lot of ecological aspects, and also she's covering.
mm.
I could cover her work in other.
Definitely. And I think between the two ideas, or if there was a connection, but I'm right now seeing them as two separate ideas, the question for you to perhaps resolve while putting the proposal together will
Mm.
be to figure out the idea of access for yourself. Right now, I'm not talking about access of an archive or access through an archive, but your access to the data. So it seems like, of course, Kalpana's work might be much more accessible, depending on, I mean, what you want to do with the documents or documentation that would have been available about Rani Wow. So which one do you work with? Do they really need to speak to each other? Which part of it is really research and scholarship? What part of it could you use for dissemination or creative output? So you can also break open your interest across what is required in proposal in the form of a proposal, and then see how you plug the pieces or put the pieces together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because see, I've been traveling all over India and I've been studying these water bodies. So for my artwork, it's basically started because I wanted to research before I did any
Mm.
visual artwork. So
Mm.
then I've got deep into it. So I'm traveling, I'm talking to the local guide, like you said, oral history. That is very important because some of them have been missed. And there are many stepwells which were made by women. So it was a KRA of the royal women. So, like you're saying, first generation women architects, those are the stories which, locally people know, but many people don't know. In fact, many people don't even know what is a stepwell.
Mm.
And I've been educating and telling people, I've been telling in the international level because my artwork has also gone internationally. So this, I think, is a very strong, message. So maybe using this forum of this, I want it to be archive because my
Correct.
work is basically research based.
Nice. Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do it. And
Right. Thank you so
okay,
much,
thank
Rashmi.
you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Rashmi. Shruti, you can go ahead.
Um, Hi, everyone. I'm Shruti, and I'm an architect and a journalist and researcher. I'm based in Pune. And this is a very interesting call. I had a very specific question regarding this scholarly project. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Uh, See, if I'm looking at adding to the archive, that is interviewing more women practitioners across the Indian built environment. So does my project, the purview or the scope of it gets limited to recording these, audio transcripts or oral histories, or does it also then have to translate into some kind of paper or some other scholarly output as well? So when I say that I want to kind of work on adding more to the archive, is it only limited to going to places and recording and probably creating the audio descriptions, the metadata, and all of that, or does it then go on to doing
I
something
think
more
this
with that
is,
data?
sorry to interrupt. I think at this
Mhm.
point, the ball is in your court. You were
Okay,
writing the proposal, and you can say
right.
all that you want to do with it. And
Yeah.
sort of we can get back to you at whatever suitable time in the process to say this is doable, but this might be too much, or no, you have actually scope for doing this also. At this point, I don't think you need to feel deterred by what is or idea of what is
Acceptable
scholarly.
or
Is it only archive building that is scholarly? Is
Mhm.
it a research paper that's only scholarly? You can challenge those notions. If it's
Okay.
helpful, I think I would leave it completely to your creative liberty.
Sure, sure. That helps. That helps because since you had very specific, I know they are not, limited to the ideas that you have listed down, but I was just kind of, given the budget and other things, I had a question about, just the scope
Yeah,
and how
and
far we can go with it.
that would be the right way to think about it.
Mhm.
So whether it's budget, again, coming back to the point of access to the material, the
Right.
fact that when you start processing it, how much can you work with? So given all the other constraints and the duration and your other work and life, etc., you might
Right.
want to make a plan which you feel is feasible more than what right now we might think is a requirement or a feasible plan. And then we
Okay,
can
great.
figure out at a later
Great.
date.
And just one more question. I can budget for travel, right? I mean, that's a part of not
Yeah.
equipment, but travel is a part
Yeah,
of.
yeah, you can, of course.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And
That's all.
equipment also not like purchase of equipments. You can hire
But
equipments.
higher equipment and studios or something like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And
Oh,
technically speaking, purchase of equipments, you can still do it depending on what kind of equipments, because then according to protocol, if the project gets selected, that particular asset has to be returned to IFA. So,
Okay,
yeah.
I see. All right. Sure. Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
that clears a lot of things. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, it has to be only one project, right? Either it's scholarly or it's artistic. You can't do like a combination of both.
Ideally, no. I see. The thing is, we spell it out as scholarly and creative, but while implementing it, it's not like a binary because a creative project to be done in a certain way, it's up to you, as Ishita pointed out. It can be a scholarly pursuit or a line of inquiry or methodological question, which leads on to something creative. So it's up to you. You can be
Okay.
creative, you can be imaginative, you can weave these together and kind of speak about the kind of outcome you want to produce.
All right. Yes. Got it. Thank you. Good evening.
But it has to be one proposal. Like you can't
Yes.
send two different proposals under two different heads.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Yeah, Misha, I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi. Yes. Hi, I'm Misha. And I am a qualitative researcher who has previously worked with curating and putting together oral archives. My question is specifically regarding the forum that's been imagined for winter. I understand that you cannot at this moment divulge a lot of information regarding the same, but I was wondering if there is an idea about who the end audience is, if there is an imagination around that, and what kind of expected outcome does this forum imagine through various activities or experiences that it's curating?
I think I can only answer the first part. And it's not because we don't want to tell much, it's because things are in formation. That's as honest as I can be.
Yeah.
Because the forum is meant for winter 2026, one is actually still putting the pieces together. And the two projects from IFA will also be an equally important part of that network. And that is why one doesn't want to pre-plan too much. And that's why I don't have a very clear answer in terms of the outcome. Or rather, I would be doing injustice to identify a few things. But to answer your question in terms of audience, one always wants to imagine every forum to be a public event. There is no shying away, even if we don't understand the word public enough. We always want to say that the invitation is open and it's supposed to be a public event. Having said that, yes, one is also aware of the fact that certain kinds of content and work, and particularly in this case, might be of more of an interest to students or young graduates, practitioners, or artists or uh, transdisciplinary practices who have some relationship with architecture, built environment, city making. So one would obviously make sure that they get the information about the forum and we want to make sure that at least they participate. But the doors will never be closed for somebody who is in IT or somebody who is in music. I mean, music obviously can have very strong overlaps, but still somebody who is exploring music or is in IT and says, hey, I also want to be a part of this forum. And sure, I mean, the idea is never going to be to make it a closed door event or an invitation.
Right. Thanks for that, Ishita. Another question that I had was that in terms of the location, is there a location that you guys have in mind in terms of whether it's happening in Bangalore, Ahmedabad, etc.?
The forum.
Yes.
The forum will be, I mean, I can only say it will be in southern India. I really can't pinpoint right now again to say it will be Bangalore because it will really depend on a lot of other factors. But that much is for sure that the focus is to look at southern India, if possible, as much possible.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Yeah, Shubhan.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Sorry, good evening. This is Shubhan from the Better Architecture Project. Just a small technical query regarding the submission guidelines. So the brief actually is quite, comprehensive, and because I have been following Vaastukala, Women of Vaastukala Archives, I'm quite familiar with the kind of work that this entails and the kind of community that, Ishita is planning to launch. I'm not saying that I know a lot, but I can, take a guesstimate ki kya hone wala hai. Coming to the submission guidelines that you have in the form, it is written that there's a proposal briefly describing the project, a brief note, a detailed timeline, and a budget, along with, the credentials, that is the CV. What I was trying to understand is that most of these, grant making proposals actually have very long forms and very arduous, those kind of things where you require a lot of things and everything. I'm sure most of you have gone through forms of, Graham Foundation, etc., etc. So, do we need to do we have certain forms at hand that we need to refer, or is it mostly, open call and, keep the proposal or keep the two-pager to be as I want or something like that? Like if there is a specific format, it would have been.
Sure. So to
That's my
answer
query.
very,
Sorry.
yeah, sorry. Is that all?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. So just answer very simply, we don't have any forms. There
Right.
is no link, no form, no kind of filling up of various fields. What we seek is a proposal, a
Hmm.
budget,
Hmm.
a timeline, and like ideas around public programming around the proposal.
Right. Right.
How
Okay.
detailed will be your proposal is up to you.
Sure.
There is no particular format, but these are key elements that we will be looking at a proposal. So you can be, very narrative driven. You
Hmm.
can be very visual driven. The way you write the proposal, you can send, record yourself speaking about what you want to do. That also we consider as a proposal.
Okay.
Uh, but a company, if you're doing, let's say, an audio visual, like recording yourself and talking about the print project and the intention of it, do send us also the budget in writing because it's very difficult otherwise to kind of assess that. And budget here becomes very important. But yeah,
Understood.
the proposal detail, how much you want to be creative with it, how detailed you want to go with it, it's entirely up to you. We do not follow any format, and that's why we also have kept it open to also understand different requirements and also to allow different kind, not allow, like to have that possibility of having proposal writing or proposal submission in various ways. So you are
Understood.
free to choose that. Yeah.
Sure, sure. If you guys have the time, I have another question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Right. So because Woman of Vaastukala was particularly built towards being a oral archive, and I also do see in this current call of applications that the focus overall is a little bit towards hosting oral archives and then using those archives as methods to get into further research or further depth, analyze them and see what's coming up not. Now, given the fact that the budget is actually quite constrained, and I understand most of these projects have constrained budgets. Now, there are two ways of doing conversation. One, you can, spend the airfare or take the train and go there, book a studio, do a conversation, or you can alternately, just choose to get on a Zoom call, because if in the end the conversation is what it matters and the material from the conversation is what it matters, then would investing on traveling down from, because my base location is Delhi, and if we are covering projects all across India, then that's a substantial amount of money that's just gone for travel. So would you be open to those kind of proposals that take this into consideration, thinking that maybe ways of collecting oral evidence might not just be because, and most of these will be just critical interviews, but interviews nonetheless. There will be no much of site visit and everything. So if this model is accepted, then within that budget, a lot more within quotes work can be done. So that is one concern that I was kind of trying to think on.
Ishita, do you want to respond to that? Or I can go first and you can add
I
on.
think you can go first. Yeah. Go ahead.
So Shubham, right now how you plan to do these interviews, whether you want to make field visits on site, it's up to you. There are also mechanisms where, we do interviews online, over Zoom, over other platforms. So look at the impulse of the work or the proposal and the intention of it,
Mhm.
and then you can kind of work around the budget. So to be a short answer is yeah, I mean yes and no, both. But the short answer will be like if you plan, if you think being on site is absolutely essential for this recording of the nuances, recording of the the textures and every
Hmm.
other thing,
Hmm.
then you have to budget that in. If not, if you want to focus on the other elements of recording the stories, oral histories, then there are ways you can do it offline. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean,
Because
yeah, tell me.
because you know, from my experience of hosting conversations, definitely with Zoom things work out when you are professionals and everyone, but because these conversations will tend to go into certain kind of deeper level of details, and they will not be very surface level conversations. So
Hmm.
while I understand that in-person conversation is always better than Zoom conversations, because of, you know, you can get to see the micro expressions, you can get to understand how conversation is happening, kaun si disha mein the room is going and everything. But then that is also a constraint on the budget portion, because traveling is I mean, flight fares have gone up, train fares have gone up, studio bookings have gone up. So that's a
I think, okay, so I'll jump in here. I think the scope is going to be your answer, not really how you break down the funding, because I think I'll leave
okay.
that again, as Ritvika said, we leave it to you how you see funds need to get used, but that will be subject to what is the scope. I think
Right.
even when we started, and as I keep sort of sharing when I talk about this archive, we didn't imagine us doing 21 interviews, and of course some of them have happened because they were online, but rest of them were offline. And one, I think we can be a bit more philosophical to say you can do more backpacker kind of travel, etc. But I think it was not really decided by those notions when, even when that proposal was made, the first proposal to build this archive. The proposal is really rooted in the scope, and that scope will help you and then all of us working together define whether we do 5 or 10 or 15, whether we do them online, in person. If in person, as you rightly said, is seeming very critical to analyze and understand something, is just 3 interviews done in depth more important than
Hmm.
trying to do 13 out of India, right? So that
Right.
is what is really going to be the way to approach this, rather than backwards from funds कितना है तो हम कितना कर सकते हैं.
All
That
right.
won't
Right.
work in this kind of a project largely.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay. I think that gives me clarity. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi,
Sudha?
I'm
Yeah. Just a moment, Ruvi. I think Sudha had her hand up for some time, so we can just take her question and then come back to you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for this talk. I'm a filmmaker and I have been the development editor for the Sept University Press since last 3 years, and I've edited quite a number of books for. The last one was on Hema Sankalya, so I'm sort of very invested now in this idea itself. So my question was, is it okay for me to sort of focus on maybe three or four, or let's say two figures who I see is important in terms of, let's say, is traversing across practice and politics, maybe? Or so is it okay to engage with 2 to 4 figures or 2 figures in the archive in the creative output that I bring about?
Yes, definitely. There is right now no restriction or no expectation in terms of you have to work with all 21, or you have to add to the 21, or you can only work with one at a time. No, it will, again, coming back to the same point, it will really depend on what is your intent and what do you want to build out of it, both for the archive and for yourself as a growing practitioner. So it will really have to make sense that whatever direction you are taking your own journey in, or your practice in that scope of things, does it make a lot of sense to work with just two practitioners narration and then build deeper into it? Sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, Ruvi, you had a question?
yes. Actually, I have
Hi.
multiple questions. Am I
Go ahead.
audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so my name is Dhruvi, and I recently completed my MA in English and Cultural Studies from Bangalore. Currently, I'm a research intern at University of Bonn under Dr. Sofia Labadi, addressing artistic practices that address German colonial past. So the project is in latter stages, and I wanted to do something new. That's why I'm here. And so my first question, like I have few logistical questions. Like since I'm a
master's student, like I recently completed my master's, am I allowed to submit the project, or is there a limit? Like only artists or doctoral students can submit the project?
No, there is no such limit. I mean, your experience being a doctoral student or not, being an artist or not, that is not anything that we go by. It's entirely what you propose, the intention and the proposal.
Yeah, so next question. Given my background, so I've written a lot of exhibition reviews and research papers, but I read in the call that you're also supposed to produce some practical outputs. So when you say practical outputs, you also include research outputs in terms of scholarly articles or research papers, or is it supposed to be like in terms of exhibitions or interviews?
As you know, what me and Ishita we have been trying to say, like the what you read in the call are certain kind of ideas we have thrown in. It's up to entirely what you want to do, how you want to look at the archives, how you want to extend it through an exhibition, through a research paper article, through a catalog, looking at the existing materials. It is entirely up to you. There is no set prescriptive rules or guidelines or expectations that we are. We are actually rather looking at how imaginative creative you can get, whether you're challenging our existing notions of how we look at creative and scholarly. So it is open to you. Ishita, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I think you've said it right, and I would just say yes. Of course, research papers are also outcomes, but I would also extend it and sort of put the ball back in your court to say that how do you want the larger audience to engage with an outcome like a research paper is where you could take off. You can really take off beyond educational institutions and academic spaces where something more can happen if you want it to happen. But if you think only a research paper needs to happen, you might just do that. So that's it. There's a lot of freedom there.
And
Exploration.
I would kind of reiterate what Ishita shared earlier, in this session was also maybe to think through ways how you can distribute what you're researching on through various modalities. Maybe you are, more interested or inclined to do a research paper, but through your research journey, through the archival endeavors, there might be other kind of findings that you get. Maybe that can be done as a exhibition, that can be done as a podcast, that can be distributed, and also perhaps think of a demography you want to look at. Are you interested only to look at people from the domain of architecture, like who are scholars, who are students, or you want to take it to a larger public, quote unquote public? Do you want to create materials for a younger audiences who are usually not acquainted with these kind of histories? So also think through the ways you can distribute these across different modalities, across different demographies. Uh, think what you will be also enjoying through 15 months. That's also very important.
Thank you so much. It really helps. And my next question, if I choose to include interviews, do I also need an agreement from the architects or artists beforehand? Like at the first stage, the stage of the proposal, do I need an agreement from them if I'm including them in my proposal?
Not an agreement, definitely not necessary at this stage, but some sense of how will you get access to them or how will you reach out to them. So it should not be a completely offhand situation where you don't even know whom you will get in touch with, or if they don't have a site or a contact detail platform anywhere, then the question will be how will you get in touch with them, right? I mean, I'm giving a very reverse example, but for the women architects that I mentioned who are not around, it was that kind of a proposal. So we had to really convince the readers of the Graham Foundation that we really don't know, these women architects are not alive, their family members are not there. And we still wanted to like go and find out if anybody knew of them in Mumbai or in Delhi. And eventually how we did trace down people. So we had some sense of that lead. It was like becoming an Indiana Jones and imagining कि कौन सी lead कहाँ पे मतलब it will connect to whom. Something like that you will definitely need to keep in mind. Because we might not right now ask you those questions while looking at your proposal, but after it's got accepted, if you are going to be quite in the blank, then there is no starting off, right? There's no starting point. And these are very real modalities that come into play when you get started with the most exciting looking projects.
Right, there are a lot of uncertainties. I think that will only be resolved as we move forward.
Correct. That is also true. So then there's also merit in the way you write the proposal, where you don't necessarily get too specific at the moment, or your intention of specificity is only to sort of show a club of people. Again, I'm going to keep going back to my own proposal, which said first generation women architects like Hema
Yeah.
Sankalya, Pravina Mehta, Rosemary Sachdev, etc., etc. I left it for imagination, mine and the readers of the application, and then eventually saw what will take off. And as I said, something else completely else took off, but the process or the intent remained, and the archive and the project happened. So, giving yourself that benefit of doubt will also be useful while writing the proposal, so you don't feel very tied down to कि यही करना पड़ेगा.
Right, thank you. And what would be the word limit for the proposal?
There is no word limit for the proposal. There is like you can, of course, we would like to also look at your journey, your point of interest. So I would kind of encourage, like, if you, as I said earlier, also, if you want to record yourself, talk about it, you're most welcome. If you're comfortable writing it, yeah, of course, elaborate as much you want to do at this stage, but not so that it doesn't also become like a laundry list. Like, I want to do interview four people, travel to four cities, and then propose one exhibition. We are also looking at the intent. The intention becomes very important in this work. So no word limit, and write how much you want to do or speak how much you want to do. We look forward to it.
Right, thank you. And so do I need to be physically present for the Winter Forum and these 15 months in India? Do I need to be in India these 15 months?
In
It is entirely
principle,
dependent
yeah.
on what you're proposing. Ethically, on principle, it will be
Yes.
good for you to spend time in India because your work is essentially rooted uh, in the domain which is Indian and which is women architectures are practicing. Secondly, about physical presence at the forum, I think Ishita will be a better person to answer that. And the other question will be technical and budget protocols, which is if you're based out of the country, um, dispensing funds, etc., will might also be slightly tricky. You can apply as long as you're an Indian citizen. There's no bars, but looking at the intervention and the kind of involvement we are looking for, we would like you to be perhaps present at the forum, doing the field work here. So yeah.
Yeah, I will sort of just agree with that, because the whole idea of the forum, and as I said earlier, that the forum is also being planned in a way where now these two projects will become an integral part of the curation and the planning or the experience of the program. I mean, of course, we can have online presence and online, if it all works out, it's easier said than done, even in today's times when we're doing forums and public events. But I wouldn't imagine that then the so-called the core or the integral team is also spread across time zones. Even if it is at least within Indian time zone, it makes it really easier to work and navigate. And yeah, we would love for you all to be here, whoever becomes a part of the project, to be in the space in situ, actually.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. And like again, it's a very logistical question. Like, how many candidates will you be choosing? Like, what's the limit? How competitive the process will be?
Let's say it will be competitive, not only dependent on the number of applications and number of projects, but also it has to kind of go through certain kinds of evaluation. The number of projects that we support, we will not be right now revealing that because it's contingent on the kind of applications we receive, the kind of resources we have to implement.
Right, that helps.
It can
Thank you
go
so
from
much.
one, it can go from three or more. So right now we will not be in a position to commit to any such thing. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. That's all. That's all I wanted to ask.
Most welcome. Um,
Rashmi
Rashmi,
has been waiting. Yeah, Rashmi.
Yeah, Rashmi again. I hope you don't mind me asking one more question. This is regarding all those answers that you have given. Thank you so much for the clarification. I usually get my team, the videographer and photographer, to travel with me. And we go to the sites because some of my travels are already done and they have been documented. They are used by me for my art project. So, is it okay that if I hire people, like I'm not a very good photographer or a videographer, so is it okay if I hire people for this project?
yeah, absolutely. You can always have collaborators
Hmm.
who will work with you, have their own expertise on the table wherever you need. So
Hmm.
feel free to, have collaborators, be it photographer, designer in your case, or for anybody else. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, your questions and answers have been very, very clarifying, and it has given me a good, when I started this Zoom call, I was a bit hazed, but now the clarity is coming in. So, thank you for your time and patience to explain things to us of what you would like. So, because this interface is very important for us to know what kind of proposal you would like us to do, and we also want to be a part of your archival, because I believe, I have a strong this thing that these stories and archives are very, very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you. And thank you for making time to, be part of the conversation.
Hi, I do have one last question, if that's okay.
Sure, go
Yes.
ahead.
So bifurcating those, again, budgeting questions. Um, Number one is I understand that there are no equipment purchase facilities that are being given, rightfully so. However, the work that we are doing might require some kind of software subscription, that kind of comes on a repetitive basis, month on month and
Mm,
all. So adding, and mostly while those are nominal costs, running not excess of 25, $30 per month, etc., can those be, provisioned in the budget? That is number one question that I had. For the duration of, because most of the conversations will be edited and produced within a duration of 5 to 6 months, not more than that if the project duration is of 9 months. So that number one. And number two is, within the budget limit that has been given, do we also need to budget for the forum that will be happening later 2026? Because then that kind of adds some extra presentation and graphics cost, etc., as well within the allotted amount. If you can help me with these. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will address the first part of the question, and then I think I will invite Ishita to respond to the second part. The first part, yes, you can budget subscription to software, subscription to platforms, subscription to e-books, e-magazines if you require. The way to do the budgeting, I would say, think of what you're intending to do, the intention, the outcomes, and budget everything what you require.
Right.
The
Okay.
only kind of cap that we have is an honorarium for you or yourself as an applicant. Everything else, and also, like as I mentioned, like any kind of even there are cases where one has to, purchase an equipment.
Right.
And
Right.
there are contingencies because let's say you are working in an area where hiring of a camera is just not possible and the cost is different. In that case, it's simply you have to return the asset to IFA. Otherwise, whatever you need to do, budget everything. We have enough, we try to give enough leeway because we have also worked enough in the field to understand what artistic and research needs are on ground. So feel free to budget. If there are any questions related to budget, we'll of course reach out to you for clarification.
Absolutely. Okay. Sure. Sure. Sure.
And I think as far as budgeting for the forum is concerned, I would just put forum on the side for a moment and say
Right.
yes, that all of you who are listening in, you would want to consider that there is some form of public interfacing for your project that is expected from the RFP itself. Now, whether it needs to be used for the forum or does it get used for a later date or for both, is something that can be discussed eventually when we all get together and understand where the projects are going, what will come of it, etc. But largely, you are expected to have a component in your budget about dissemination. So
Yeah.
I would just leave it at
Right.
that. No, I
Right.
wouldn't worry so much about the forum at that point. Yes.
Sure. Thank you.
Anybody else? I mean, I don't want
Hi,
to.
I have, can you hear me?
Yes,
I'm
we can.
Shanti Gupta. Hi, I'm an architect and researcher, and I work with Delft and Bauhaus, and I usually engage with old archives to create new narratives. And like in all the conversation I'm saying, I think what I'm proposing is more to do with new ways of interpreting what has already been done, and if it's not extending into creating, new archives. So is it something that is not wanted by this open call, or like the interpretation itself could be enough
It's
um,
completely
for
okay.
this moment?
It's just that you
Okay.
have heard
Yes.
everyone else's
Yeah.
ideas who want to
Yeah.
contribute. We haven't
Okay.
said that that's all we want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Anybody else? I see few names who have earlier written to us, and we had certain discussions. So if you want to continue the conversation over email, which is also fine, but if you have specific things you want to know, you can go ahead and ask us. Also, there is, a week's time now for the deadline. So try to send any responses and queries by early next week so we have enough time to respond to those before you submit the final applications. And yeah, I mean, feel free to also write the proposal or speak about what you want to do in the language that you're comfortable with. It is not necessary that your work has to be in like a Kannada, Marathi, Gujarati, but you can express yourself in any language that you want and still do the final work or the exhibition, the research in English. So yeah, I mean, feel free to also think along those lines, whatever language you choose to speak in, express yourself. We welcome that. We would like to also look at the, I think, region specificities that kind of the language opens up. So yeah, and as I said, if you want to, in addition to a written proposal, if you want to send us audio recordings, if you want to record yourself and explain certain things, it is most welcome. Okay, Ishita, do you want to say anything else or any kind of directions? Not prescriptions, which we are not doing, but directions.
I think I would just reiterate what came up as a last question, that while I know when I introduced the project, I said that we're looking forward to collaborations with everyone to sort of activate or take the archive to more places. It obviously makes one feel like we're looking at more contributions, but that's not the only way to activate an archive. And I know you did continue saying that after I finished the introduction. The way to activate an archive could also be to just work with the material that is in the archive. So while it's of course one form of humility that we say that we have only scratched the surface, but it's hopefully deep enough. And we are also aware of it that we ourselves, with the fact that we're building a research-based practice, have not had the time to go into the depth of the material itself, which is on the in the archive. So, what you would have done if it was an institutional archive where material is already available and you are studying it, interpreting it, working with it, and then think about what more needs to be added or supplemented, could also definitely be a way to think about the proposals, because I think that is very much required for this archive. As much as growing this archive is required in terms of its breadth, I think showcasing or bringing out or excavating its depth is also required, and the invitation is for both the aspects. So that's something I feel I should have reasserted. So yeah, apart from that, I think we have covered almost all different ideas that could have, or all different approaches that could have been discussed.
And also, I think one thing that I would like to reiterate, like, of course, there's a forum, and you are whoever is selected is expected to uh, present, be part of the forum with that specific outcome. But it does not mean that we'll deter you from working on it beyond 9 months. You can still use the 15 months if you on your own want to, showcase it at a particular site. You want to create a catalog and present it somewhere. We are also open to that. So in no way, while presenting something at the forum is very important and essential, but also that does not mean we are going to stop your work or discourage you from working beyond 9 months.
In fact, that brings me to a very important clarification, because I think the forum has become such an important topic for today, which I don't think I was prepared for. So this clarification is also coming to my mind when I'm listening to Ritwika. See, the date is not really cast in stone, first of all, and it's not because we want to make your proposals be more comfortable. It's genuinely not cast in stone. There are a lot of actors and factors which are going to affect how the forum is getting planned and how it will get executed. So while IFA proposal, I mean the RFP was being written, we have said winter, but at least in the last 2 weeks, we have been ourselves internally discussing whether it is winter or is it fall, which means we might even prepone it, or is it the spring of 2027. And it's just to say that it is a very, it is going to happen, but it's a very loose element of the larger scheme of things. The larger scheme of things over here, meaning that one wants to activate, grow, and make this archive more anchored, more accessible, more understood. अब उसके लिए whatever has to be done for it, whether it means that the forum needs to be rethought about, preponed, postponed, one project, three projects with IFA. There are other collaborations which are being discussed, other partners who will come into play. Do we move from a metro city and work in a tier 2 or a tier 3 city for the forum? This is all open ended. That is why we said that we don't have much to say about the forum. It's not that we're being secretive. We're just trying to say we are also right now in our proposal building stage for the forum. Let's put it like that. While you have your thing to
Concerns and
figure out with your grant, we are figuring out who will give us the money for the forum, how will it happen, the money that's already there, how will it get repurposed, etc. So I don't really see forum becoming, except for being a very important part of your planning, perhaps, that
yeah.
whenever the forum is happening, does it pause your process? Does it puncture your process? Does it disrupt your process? I'm seeing this all in a creative way. It's not a negative. Does
Yeah.
it enhance your process? Do you want to use the forum to do something which would not happen otherwise? Because you're saying that it might be a public platform or a public space, which means that that gives an impetus to what else you could do in the next 6 months. So you can look at it as that one part of your machinery, but don't make it everything about your proposal.
Hmm. I think thanks for clarifying that. I mean, kind of also reiterating it in this platform. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would end today's, I think, session if nobody else has any other questions for us. Is don't write thinking, how what we are expecting, because we have sent the call out to also welcome more and more ideas to see how the archive can be grown, how you want to make meaning of the existing materials that is in there. So while the call, of course, has certain ideas there, you can work around it, you can work with it, or you can propose something entirely new that we have also not thought of. Be clear about the intention in the proposal. Choose your way of writing the proposal. There's no format. We, as an institution, as I think on behalf of both of us, I can say, we are quite adaptive and open and like to see different forms of also proposals being written and sent to us. So, yeah, I think Rashmi has a question. Rashmi, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, last question. Regarding copyright, so is your foundation going to have the copyright of the work that has been done if my proposal is accepted?
So IFA will never IFA is a custodian. IFA is a facilitator. IFA does not own copyright of anything. However, in this case, it will be not so much about copyright ownership. Depending on the kind of work, the kind of framework you're proposing, there will be certain ethical considerations. There will be levels of user access and permissions that you might have to engage with if you're working with the existing materials. Which means, and Ishita will clarify more, I would invite her to do so, which means if you're going back to certain materials which is sitting in the archives already and you want to work with them, it might that you have to go back to the particular respondents, to particular figures, get clearance, get permissions for them from them. If you want to feature their work in an interpretive manner, maybe also to keep their permissions in place. So that is the larger framework. It is, if you're making a film, the copyright of that film lies with you, of course. We would like to have copy of that film. Curating for Culture will like to have a copy of that film. We would like to plan sharing and dissemination of the work, but none of the institutions are going to withhold copyright or hold copyright.
Okay. And one more question was from all this work that I have done, suppose my proposal is accepted, and whatever I have done through IFA, through this Vaastukala, so can I use these information for my future material for my books or blogs or podcast or anything? Can I do it later? Am I authorized to do that? Because see, mine is a very ongoing project. I don't expect to finish it in, say, in a finite. There's a lot of angles coming up as and when I'm working. So can I?
Yeah, Ishita, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, see, for material that you will create, we will discuss what is the form of consent and ethical guidelines that you're following. So, the new material that you will source or create, you will keep that it's a three-way collaboration in mind. And so, does the community member or the participant need to know about, right? That it is happening as a process of collaboration between IFA, Women of Vaastukala, and Rashmi. So in those situations, we will all discuss the kind of permissions you are taking, and sort of follow that. So if your permission taking already clears you for any future rights, and the architect or the contributor or the practitioner is okay with it, then we would obviously not have any qualms with it. Coming back to the material that is already with Women of Vastukala, there is a consent form which has been signed, and we don't believe in doing blanket permissions or umbrella permissions. We have taken permissions for building this archive and dissemination through this archive or interpretation through this archive. So we have a more community engaged process with most of our contributors, not only of this archive, but other projects we work with, which is where Ritwika was clarifying that any past material that you work with, the idea will be to constantly keep them in loop, which means even in these 15 months of collaboration with IFA, but in the future, they do need to know if it's getting re-exhibited, it's getting reinterpreted, or it's getting written in a different way. It's lesser about permissions, it's more about acknowledging somebody else's IP.
Yeah, yeah, of
Because
course.
ultimately it's their
Of course.
material, and we do believe in that because it's somebody else's material and we've got this consent, it doesn't mean we can go around doing so many things with it. So that's how we
Sure,
discuss these matters, if that makes sense.
sure. Thank you so much for the clarification.
And yeah, I think that was one point which also came to my mind. I mean, generally, when all of you are thinking of applying and working with us, something that we will all discuss as a part of maybe introductions or initiation, and I think a long-term relationship is the ethical guidelines and the whole idea of approaching community engaged or community based projects in a certain way. We will not want to be authoritative in terms of saying hum jo kar rahe hain or what we are doing is the best way of doing it, but we would want to start from there, definitely. And then we are very happy if our ethical guidelines or our approach gets refined working with you. And refined should happen as a discourse or a debate and not as something that gets challenged or questioned. So there are ways to go about it, but it's a very important part of the work that we do at Curating for Culture and the various archives that are situated under it. And anybody collaborating, working with us, we want to take you along in that journey and grow in that discourse also, so that there's more as an outcome and not just these forums and scholarly or creative outputs, but actually something more that comes out as knowledge production, hopefully for long term. So that's going to be an important requirement in the
And we will
next.
have that conversation. I think, whichever proposal application is selected, we have taken this into account, and we will have that conversation, because it will also be contingent of the kind of work that you're proposing to do. And it's also not like a one-time thing. Neither IFA nor Curating for Culture, none of us are looking at this only like okay, 15 months ho gaya, 9 months ho gaya, forum ho gaya, and you're done with it. It is just to enable a certain kind of discourse, pedagogy. So it also needs to take into consideration the larger sensibilities that you can emerge and grow along with it. So
Yeah, I think continuum is a very important part of the work we do. Now, I'm just telling you about the work we do in general. So, you can definitely look at this collaboration as a long-term relationship and then find ways to sort of situate yourself in the way Curating for Culture goes about doing things, or agreeing, disagreeing, discussing, discourse about it. And yeah, I mean, I take a lot of pride or stride in the fact that everybody who's worked with women of Vaastukala is always around and is always interested in supporting this project. And again, so is true for most of the archiving project that we have built. So the invitation is also for you to think about it as a long-term relationship and not just yes, of course, grow your practices out of it. Not to say you have to just stick to this, but also don't see it as this one-time opportunity and be done with. So,
mhm. Okay, I think that kind of brings us to an end of the discussion. And it has been a very important session, I feel, because I think while speaking to all of you, a lot of questions, nuances also got clarified, which I personally had not thought about earlier when we had discussed, or we have written several drafts of it. So thanks to all of you also for to respond to this. And yeah, as final reminders, do try to send in your proposals slightly early, especially if you have queries to be answered, because it will be only like two of us trying to discuss and send it things back to you in time. And yeah, we look forward to receiving the proposals and working with some of you perhaps in the future.
and yeah, thank you so much for your interest and effort. I mean, from where I am seeing it, I'm on behalf of Women of Vastukala Archive, definitely thrilled that there is so much of an interest in wanting to work with women histories which are not visually accessible in a world where so much is so much about what you see and what you feel and hear, but it's more experiential. So, for all your efforts that you're going to put into building the proposal and envisioning how you could work with this content and with us despite all that's going on in the world. So thank you. That's very hope giving, and I hope you also feel enriched by this process.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashita. Thank you for, responding to everything and being and holding it together. And have a great weekend, everyone. And goodbye and good night.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye. Good night.